Today we're talking film trilogies and wrapping up the Loki season with our final impressions. Get ready for a fresh new episode of Podcast Demastered. Welcome listeners to episode 7 of the podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Meyer, and I'm joined as always by my two very good friends, Wade and Chelsea. Today is going to be a fun episode. We're going to be talking film trilogies. But before we get into all of that, we got to talk about that Loki finale. So,
yes.
right off the bat, Chelsea, first impression of the finale for that show.
That's the way to do it. That's the way they did it. They made a good show. It was a good finale. It was definitely set up like a show where it had like a fun cliffhanger too, but at least it answered a lot of your questions.
Yeah.
It was well written, well executed. The direction of the episode was great. I don't know. I thought they did it right this time.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. They definitely stuck the landing. Wade, what about you? First impressions?
Just the whole feel of the episode starting out like so soft, and everything was just so like right in place. And you really didn't know where it was going to go once it started like in this atmosphere. But there was never any like high action. There wasn't anything huge. It was just plot, revelations, bam, bam, bam. Yeah. And then the rush to the end. And then, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. That's honestly kind of what I want in a final episode. Like, right? I don't need a big, like, bombastic fight. Mm-hmm. I want, like, give me more questions and give me answers, you know? Especially if I know there's another season, like I expect not everything to be resolved because it kind of, you know, doesn't make it as fun waiting for the second season.
Right.
But at least some of the stuff that they established in the beginning, they at least, you know, sort of wrap up by the end. At least a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And this one actually does have bigger ramifications for the entire MCU as opposed to just like Loki, whereas the other two shows were just kind of more like big revelations for that specific character, where either it's a costume change or a name change, you know. But Loki completely changes everything moving forward, and that is incredibly exciting. I think they came out after the finale debuted and said that Loki technically on the timeline takes place right after Endgame, but before WandaVision, I think. That's what they said. So technically after even the timeline starts like erupting, we still have all these other shows that happen. Because WandaVision is like 4 months after Endgame. And didn't they say like Falcon and Winter Soldier was like 6 to 8 months after Endgame or something like that? So all these things are all those shows are happening even with the so on multiverse starting to erupt, which is pretty crazy. Which I'm wondering, does that help explain something with Ms. Marvel? Who knows? That could be interesting. What'd you guys think of Jonathan Majors' portrayal as one of the variants for what is the character's actual name? Isn't it like Nathaniel Richards? Isn't that King the Conqueror's like
yeah,
like one of his
does he
in the comics?
Yes,
that's
that's Iron Lad's name, who is like the kid version of Kang.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ever called that.
He's never called
that iteration.
Yeah, because in the show he's just he who remains. You know, they don't ever call him anything. They don't even call him Kang because he's technically not Kang, I guess, because Kang's a very violent variant of him. So, but I actually really liked that actor and his.
He did such a great job. Mm-hmm. I really wasn't sure the direction, like, the character was going to go in, like, how he was going to be perceived. But, like, watching him act, but then, like, you're putting it together on, like, who he really is and how long he's been there for and why he's doing what he's doing, and he's like he's kind of lonely, very tired, but he still has this big job to do. Crazy. Yeah, he's kind of losing it a little bit.
I mean, that dude has literally seen some shit.
For real. And
He's seen it all.
We're going to get the same actor portray the different character in the future.
Which is
I
cool.
really want to see how he's going to be later. Like, how far of a departure from this He Who Remains character is King the Conqueror going to be? I want to see that jump.
I'm expecting, like a very different portrayal from what He Who Remains is.
Oh, yeah.
It even seems like He Who Remains is afraid of Kang,
Yes.
Which is
who he could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you think I'm evil? Wait till you meet my variants. I'm just like, damn, this dude.
Yeah, it's going to be a flippin' mess. And, like, so we know we're going to get him in Quantumania.
Which
like,
is like,
that'll be the reveal
it's like
of
2 years away, too, which
yeah,
sucks.
I know, that's forever. But after the shenanigans of, Wanda and Doctor Strange going through this multiverse stuff,
Yeah.
it's likely he has some things to say about that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to start using this actor as kind of the same way they did Thanos, where they start just kind of peppering him around for a while. 3, 4, 5 years before he actually makes a full screen, reveal.
That's true. Or even having like different variants show up, but they're not all like quite as bad until we get the super big reveal at the end.
Oh,
Yeah,
that'd be
that's
crazy.
True. I mean, because also the show ends with Loki in a different universe, where seemingly it's like implied that that's Kang's timeline.
Well, Kang is in charge of the TVA now.
Yeah.
So everything before that point has changed to match Kang's version of it, since the TVA's time is a loop. So I'm guessing that's why like those people didn't know who Loki is anymore, because everything's been, their future and their past has been changed to where that never happened. So I look forward to seeing how Loki fits into the TVA, I suppose, with his next season.
Yeah, they also said that Loki's supposed to be in Doctor Strange now.
Really?
Yeah, I saw that floating around on the internet that it was like announced that he's supposed to have like some sort of role in Doctor Strange.
Interesting.
But I guess they were keeping it under wraps until the show was over. So,
well, if that's true, I look forward to that. There's so much. Can we just make the Doctor Strange movie like 4 hours long at this point?
right.
Because there's so many rumored like appearances and everything else happening in it. Like, Jesus Christ, let's just do that.
One thing that's kind of like sad news that I saw is that the like one of the key writers and showrunner for Loki is not returning for season 2.
Yeah.
Kate Herron. That kind of upsets me because I feel like she handled this show with, just perfectly. Like, it was such an amazing product, and it's sad that she's not going to be able to do season 2 or willing or whatever. She said she's working on other stuff that's non-Marvel related, so it seems like she kind of just got in, did her thing, got out.
Well, it sounded like she agreed to do the season 1 and she had the plan all written out and everything.
Yeah.
And it was later that they were like, oh, well, we're going to do a season 2. But she had already was like, well, I've already made plans for like all these other things.
Yeah.
So, which is too bad, but
too.
Yeah, so that's disappointing.
Yeah.
Because it would be nice to kind of keep I like it when shows actually keep the same, like production teams and stuff, because it just helps with consistency.
Oh, for sure.
So,
apparently there was a whole bunch of people that worked on the Loki show that had never seen any of the Thor movies.
I also read that the composer, Natalie Holt, I think her name is, she wrote the music before the show even started like filming.
Oh, really?
Dang.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
like she said that she did the like the theme, like the Loki theme, before they even like got started.
Sweet.
I was like, that's
Sweet.
pretty
That's
impressive.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's like, 'cause it works perfectly. Like, This show has the best music out of like all MCU properties, in my opinion. Like,
Hey, if you're telling me that Agatha All Along is not a banger, you need to calm that down.
It's absolute horseshit trash. Nonsense.
Oh my god.
It's literally just Twitter swill. That's all it is.
Hey, it's fun, but it's
campy.
It's not
and
the
fun
music
and
of
stupid,
Loki.
but it's not music.
Well, if they're two different things, though.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. One's good.
Oh my god. Whatever.
We'll just say that the TV shows brought a lot more memorable music than some of the movies.
Well, the movies did indeed.
Well,
I mean, the shows did have better like overall music than the movies did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the movies you got like one
Falcon and Winter
Soldier. A lot.
Falcon and Winter Soldier's music is just like literally, it's almost like royalty free, like cinematic shit that you could download on the internet. Like,
yeah.
Well, we're just talking about maybe a little bit of WandaVision, and we'll talk about Loki. So there we go.
Yeah. WandaVision was creative because it was doing like stylistic approach to music based on era. So that's like creative, but it's not like it's a soundtrack I want to listen to. Whereas I would actually sit down. In fact, I've been refreshing Spotify daily waiting for the album to drop for Loki just so I can listen to it.
Oh, is it not all out yet?
No, just the first 3 episodes.
Oh.
So I'm hoping this
like
week.
The theme song goes on there.
Yeah, the theme's on there and episodes 1 through 3. But I want that whole album because that soundtrack is incredible. I love it so much. So, yeah, I mean, we could spend forever just speculating on how much they're going to play into this multiverse. I did read that they were talking about how they've been very careful on doling out information about the multiverse, and they're going to continue to be. So I don't think it's going to be just like this, you know, it happened in Loki and all of a sudden they're just going to explode with...
Yeah. The way that they made it seem, like the reaction from the audience made it seem was that, like, it's everything everywhere. People are going to start popping into existence and timelines are melding and portals to the multiverse is opening, and it's like, everybody calm down.
Yeah. Like, I still think we're going to get little, like, inklings and stuff with it, and then, you know, with Doctor Strange, like, there's going to be more messing around with it, but I don't think we're going to see, like, actual, real, tangible changes until, you know, Quantumania, Season 2 of Loki, you know, when Phase 5 proper actually starts. Like...
So, here's my take on, like, what I think is what, like, really happened after Loki hit. Is that what the TVA was doing was they have like the sacred timeline, and all these other multiverses, like, they already exist, they're already there, but what the TVA is controlling is that they're going from multiverse to multiverse, jumping through all the different dimensions, making sure that everybody in each dimension follows the same path. So even though there's all these different kinds of Lokis, for instance, that Loki will always live the same life, more or less, as, like, our Loki did.
Right.
So that everybody makes the same choices, everybody's doing the same thing, even if they're not physically the same person. And now that the TVA has changed, and Kang the Conqueror, we assume, is now running the show, and he doesn't care about that because he wants to conquer the universes. He doesn't care. Everybody is basically going to be free to make the choices that they want, which will lead to the diverging choices and timelines and stuff within the other universes.
Yeah, because
I think that's what that really means.
Yeah. Which they could stretch out to be, you know, a very, like, I don't expect any characters from other universes popping up all, you know, like, as soon as that finale was over, everybody was like, oh my god, I can't wait for Spider-Man. They're going to be, all the Spider-Mans are going to be in this movie. And I was like, I still don't think that's happening. Like, I don't. So, that whole movie just seems like smoke and mirrors and red herrings left and right, you know? At this point, I don't even think it's an actual film. So,
right? Time to go on a media blackout.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but they're definitely going to stretch this out. I mean, the Infinity Saga was 10 years long. So
Mm-hmm.
I doubt seriously we're going to see a full-fledged like multiverse war in the next year. This is going to be something.
Oh my gosh.
They're gonna play this up and stretch this out for a while.
Well, I think it'd be really cool to do what happened about 7 years ago, something like that, where the multiverse was experiencing something called incursions, where the lines between the multiverses were collapsing, and basically like Earths were like coming into each other and like, just killing everybody. Like Earths were colliding. They did this to the comics did this to make things a little more simple because they wanted to get rid of the Ultimate Universe. But there was this big event called the Final Days, I think, where the Ultimate Universe and the 616 universe finally started to come in contact with each other, which led to Secret Wars. And then once those two worlds collided into each other, through a bunch of crazy stuff that happened in the last like 3 years before that, Dr. Doom became a god. Basically, he became God Doom, and used this new power to create a planet like an Earth, to save as many people as he could from these like collapsing universes. And on this planet had like different areas where like different versions of the comics existed. You had all sorts of like crazy stuff happening. Like the Marvel Zombies had a spot on the map.
Yes, give me a Marvel Zombies film, please.
There was all of this stuff, and then at the end of that story, the Earth was returned to its original state, but Ultimate Universe characters were like waking up on Earth thinking that they had always just been there. Like that's why Miles, for instance, is in the 616 universe now.
Yeah.
He was just kind of written into this new reality that is. And that gave them the opportunity to change a whole lot of stuff. So it'd be pretty bonkers to see in the films like 15 years from now.
I'm going to say one thing that's going to be interesting to see how they handle this from just like a writing and just how they kind of parse out all this information. Because anytime you start dealing with time and multiverses and more higher concepts, these are still films that are aimed at a wide audience and not just like the fans of the comics. So they're going to have to figure out a way to make this information more like palatable to everyone. You know what I mean? And it's going to be like, I hope that they don't do it in a way where they kind of like simplify it too much or like kind of like bastardize like some of the grander concepts of the multiverse, like what you're just talked about with the comics, because I can see that being a little bit too over the top for like a general audience to even grasp.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be curious to see how they handle this, because it's going to be it's very risky, you know.
Oh, it is. It absolutely, the whole multiverse thing, like when it came up in Far From Home,
yeah.
I had this little voice in the back of my head that immediately started to worry, like, oh crap, they're opening a can of worms here.
Yeah.
Like, this is a mess.
Especially if that actually was how they introduced multiverse. It's just like some throwaway line. Like, oh yeah, I'm from Earth 786. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's totally fine. That makes sense. Like, that was the one thing that threw me off about that film, is like Nick Fury and then we're like, yeah, whatever, sure, multiverse.
Totally,
whatever.
for sure, absolutely.
Makes absolute sense. We're not going to question this at all.
Right.
I'm like, wait, what?
Now, I mean, to be fair, they were Skrulls.
Yeah, I was
True.
gonna say that.
So they were there, and you can totally see Talos like being super cool about it, and like, yeah, Fury absolutely knows about this. This sounds real. Yeah.
Yeah. True.
I could definitely see that.
Also, with the idea of all these multiverses, what is the likelihood that they introduce variants of characters that are dead in our timeline? Do you think we ever see Robert Downey Jr. as Stark again, or Chris Evans as Captain America in different versions, or Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow as different like variants? You think that'll no?
I don't think so. Like they showed in Loki that like just because you're a variant of a person does not mean you have to be physically the same person.
Yeah, I mean there was
So-
President Loki that looked exactly, but that was. You're talking about something. You're talking about something that's like infinite. So like
Yeah.
they can either do it or they don't, and it's already kind of a built-in plausibility.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just curious if they use this as like a way to be like, hey, we're gonna bring this character back for a throwaway cameo just for fun because we can now.
Well, that they like a cameo.
Like I'm not,
For sure,
I'm not expecting them to be like,
but-
hey, we're gonna sign them on for 7 more movies.
Yeah, like
You know
to
what I
bring them
mean?
back
But-
in a capacity like that. No, but a cameo, like something fun. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm someday I'm sure we'll get Chris Evans back in the suit for a hot second.
I can see him coming back more than I can see Robert Downey coming back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But man, I do kind of miss Tony Stark. just saying. Character I hated in the beginning, I loved by the end, and I was like, oh wow, this sucks.
Well, that's the charm about Tony, though. You're not supposed to like him,
You're
and then
supposed
you
to love
go,
him.
and then you go through all this development that he gets,
Yeah.
and you sympathize a lot more with him.
Yeah.
Which they did.
Yep.
They did a great job at that part. So
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So yeah. Loki season finale. Pretty impressive. I'm really glad they actually nailed the ending.
thank God.
Also, I saw someone bring up that it was like Loki and like, you know, he was the one that sort of kind of instigated Thanos to come into the world because he failed at conquering Earth. So Thanos was like, all right, I guess I'll just handle this shit myself because Loki can't do it. And then now he's, you know, killed He Who Remains, and now he's going to start a whole nother chaotic war with another big bad. It's like it's always Loki
Wah,
screwing
wah.
things things up.
I mean, kind of. That's pretty on character. So
Yeah.
we'll look forward to more shenanigans later.
Yeah, same. All right, any other final takes from Loki? I mean, I'm sure we could continue to speculate for hours, but
That's what
But
we're
yeah.
here for, right?
yeah. But yeah.
Well, this week, what are we here for?
This week we are here to talk about our personal favorite film trilogies. That's going to be our party chat topic for this episode. This was your idea, Wade.
Sure
So-
was.
Do you want to, you want to kick it off? Do you want to talk about why you wanted to discuss film trilogies? You know, it's balls in your court, pal.
Sure. Well, I think like a lot of us grew up with film trilogies. Like they were a thing before we were born, but you know, us millennials and all. There's a lot of them that we've gotten to experience over the course of our lives, ranging from kids movies to teen movies, adult movies, everywhere in between. And a lot of them, I think, they have a place in our hearts. Even the forbidden third movie of some of these trilogies, the rough, rocky downhill slope. But at least for me, I still keep them close to the chest. For instance, one of my favorite film trilogies is the original Spider-Man trilogy. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, honestly, I thought about putting that in my camp as well.
Is it because of the third movie? Is
It's
that
because
why you did?
it's because of the third movie. Yeah, it's because of the third movie.
See,
It's still an enjoyable trilogy, I think,
Yes.
overall, though.
see, I
Oh,
really
yeah,
like the
100%.
third movie.
Yeah. Not perfect, but it's still pretty good,
Oh, yeah.
I'd say.
Oh yeah.
The first two movies elevate it for sure because the first two films are fantastic. They got
Gives
great
the-
villains. That actually that series has really good music.
Oh yeah.
Like the Spider-Man theme is really good. The Spider-Man music in those films is really good. For when that movie came out, that was like early 2000s. Like it ages surprisingly well.
I can watch those anytime still.
Yeah, I mean, I recently watched that trilogy. I think last year actually. I went back and watched all three of them. And Spider-Man 3 is still terrible, but God, those first two movies are so good.
Maybe
There's-
one day
there's-
we'll get an acceptable Venom
There's
movie.
there's parts of Spider-Man 3 I really like, but man, the studio they got too involved. You know, like Sam Raimi's vision would have been if they just let him do what he wanted to do. You could tell that there was there was roots in place to make a good film, and then they just started like just throwing stuff at the walls. Like, hey, we gotta just keep throwing nonsense in this film.
Shove all the villains in there.
Yeah, and I was like, this is terrible.
Isn't Sam Raimi doing Doctor Strange too?
Yeah, because the original director Scott Derrickson, who did the first Doctor Strange, he left over creative differences because apparently he wanted to make that film more scary than what Marvel wanted.
Yeah, he wanted to make like a.
He wanted to make like a horror
film.
Yeah,
that's his background. Like that's what he's known for.
Yeah, man, and I was even excited whenever they said that, and then he left, and I was like, oh, rats.
Yeah, I was excited to see a Marvel horror film, but apparently Sam Raimi's vision is still supposed to be having horror roots. Yeah, and he's kind of known for that as well, but his is more campy horror.
Yeah,
where Scott Derrickson is like more actual like nightmares.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm wondering, since Sam Raimi is doing this movie, I wonder if we're gonna see any like callbacks or winks to the original Spider-Man trilogy.
I don't know. They'd have to, since that's still Sony owned. I don't know how close to the chest they want to play that.
We can dream.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the movie that all the other Spider-Men are supposed to be in. So.
Right. Isn't there a rumor that like the Spider-Man universe and the Marvel universe are supposed to be like bridging at some point?
Well, I
keep seeing that, but I don't know if it's actually substantiated by actual sources or if it's just been.
If you listen to Sony, they are already in the same universe. Marvel I think, has been very nice and just let them talk about it, but they haven't shown a ton of stuff that actually puts the two worlds together.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like in the Morbius trailer, you see like posters of Spider-Man, of the Tom Holland Spider-Man being wanted for murder.
Yeah.
And that's the only physical evidence I think that we have so far.
And hasn't that movie been delayed like 7 times now?
Well,
like even before COVID.
Before COVID, I don't know if it got delayed before COVID, but because of COVID, it got delayed a whole bunch.
Yeah, because it's not even coming out this year at all, right?
Oh, really?
Next year now? Yeah, I think it's next year now. Sure. And Venom is this year.
I am looking right now.
Which makes no sense because Venom filmed after Morbius.
It should be. Well, but maybe they did that. Maybe Venom 2 is going to like start heading in that direction, and they wanted to change a bunch of stuff in Morbius to kind of cement that fact. But God knows.
I don't know. Also, not to get too off on a tangent here, but has anyone seen that trailer for Venom 2 and is actually excited for that film? Because I think it was awful.
Yet. I've purposely stayed away.
I've never even seen the first one, so I have nothing really to add on that.
The first one's a very generic film, but Tom Hardy makes it more enjoyable.
Oh, thank God for Tom Hardy.
Yeah, because everything else around that movie is awful.
I want to see Tom Hardy and Tom Holland in a movie together now.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I just want to see Venom and Spider-Man and act like those two versions interacting. Right. But
man,
yeah, anyways,
they could still like do a Spider-Man Venom thing, but we should focus on the trilogies. Yeah. Focus on the trilogies. Anyway, okay, so Spider-Man
trilogies.
Love Spider-Man. I'd put Amazing Spider-Man on there, but it didn't get a trilogy. So
because it was not good.
Poor guys. They tried.
Honestly, the first one wasn't bad, but the second one was not good at all.
I don't really remember the second one. I remember like big stuff that happened, but
I remember it opened with like that rhino fight, and it was so awful. I was like, well, this is going to be a bad movie.
Yeah. I just remember watching that being surprised. I'm like, oh, I thought they would have saved this for like a third movie. Apparently not. And then
they definitely fell in that trap where it's like, well, Spider-Man has a really good rogues gallery. Let's throw half of them in this movie. It's just like, okay.
We'll just skip over Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin for now, I guess.
Yeah, right. They even had the audacity to tease a Sinister Six. They're like, come on, guys, you're not getting this.
Well, at least they didn't put Mary Jane in it like they were going to.
Oh, yeah.
That'd been in bad taste. Like, oh, don't worry, your girlfriend died, but don't worry, your other girlfriend already been introduced. She's ready to go. It's fine.
Oh gosh.
And it was like Shailene Woodley, I think. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been terrible casting too.
Well, like the set pics of her like as MJ,
Yeah.
I don't think were
those.
very flattering.
No, not at all.
So I'm really glad. I'm kind of glad that part didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm glad that whole Yep. It's just not This is just not good.
All right. Well,
I feel like the only thing I remember about those movies real quickly was just like it was like one of the 3D movies that came out, the short-term 3D for the first one.
I like the 3D for those movies. They were actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I
Getting
remember
to see a lot of like Spider-Man antics and web slinging through his eyes and stuff.
Yeah. I remember the first movie they were going into that. They were trying to make it like really dark and brooding, which is kind of the opposite of why people like Spider-Man.
Andrew Garfield, okay.
Yeah. Like, I remember the marketing campaign. They're like, oh, this is like a dark, serious Spider-Man. I'm just like, okay, you guys clearly don't understand Spider-Man. So
Yeah, we'll slip a little Coldplay in there. They won't matter.
yeah, exactly.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that's a good trilogy, but it's not one of. I mean, I usually kind of stop before I watch Spider-Man 3. I'm just like, I'll watch these first two, and then I'll just not waste my time with the third one.
Well, I've got a couple more that I can't wait for you to hear and react to.
Okay.
But for now, Chelsea, what's one of your favorite film trilogies?
Well, I think the hard thing for me with film trilogies is that I like quite a few of them, but it's just more of like a casual, like, oh, they're enjoyable, but are they really good? Yeah, do they have some bad ones? Yeah, but
for
I'd
sure.
say one overall that is actually like really good is the Matrix trilogy.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yes.
I knew we were good friends for a reason.
Yes, there you go. I'm glad I said the right thing. No.
I freaking love the Matrix trilogy. Oh my God, I love it. It's so damn good.
It's been years since
incredible.
I've seen a Matrix movie, I think.
Dude, I think that movie was way ahead of its time.
Oh, for sure.
100% in
in-
so many ways.
Yeah, like I was kind of talking about this on Twitter earlier in the week because I actually just recently rewatched the entire trilogy, and that film is so incredibly diverse, like all of them, and it also has really like good female characters that aren't just like either damsels or throwaways. Like, there's some serious, like, straight-up badasses in that film that are, like, female characters.
Are you talking about Trinity? Is that her name? Trinity?
Like, Trinity.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Captain Niobe, which is
Oh,
played by
Niobe.
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Forgot
And then
about
the
that.
Oracle is a fucking badass. Like, I love the Oracle in those movies.
Jesus. Well, now I gotta go watch them again.
I just
absolutely-
recently watched them too. So.
It's so good. It's so... And they actually... Those films, they came out roughly the same time as Spider-Man, and they've aged pretty well. Like, there's some digital effects, and I'm like, ugh, Jesus, this kind of looks like a video game. But since they utilize so many like miniatures and practicals, like, it still holds up for the most part.
I think so. I think the cinematography is really good. The music,
Oh, yeah, there's some really cool
acting,
shots.
the fight scenes, everything about that movie. The story is great. It's just,
Yeah.
and it's a trilogy that, like, I think all the movies are really good, and it tells a complete story.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really feel like, oh, I wish this one didn't exist, because they all need to exist.
Yeah, can we
would,
take a second and talk about the fight scenes? Because the choreography in that movie,
man.
like the fact that, okay, if you watch a lot of American cinema when it comes to like anything with fighting or martial arts or any of that stuff, there's so many edits because it's so fake. So they have to edit around all of it. Like, there was like that running joke for years about the first Taken film where Liam Neeson is like chasing a guy and he jumps a fence, and just that scene of him running and jumping a fence had like 9 cuts, like 9 different edits to show him jumping a fence. And there are literal scenes in the Matrix where they don't cut at all, they just are doing their fight, and that's a very like Japanese way of filming fight scenes. And I mean, and I guess, and Chinese too, you know, as well, because Jackie Chan used to complain about this when he became an American film actor. is that they would cut all the time during his stunts, and he would yell at him, be like, "No, don't cut! Like I'm doing this whole thing, through completion. I'm not. This isn't staged. Like just let us fight."
Right.
And the Matrix is the same way. Like those fights, they just let it happen. They let it play out. And the stunt coordinator, I think his name's Chad Stahelski or something like that. He went on to direct all the John Wick films. And if you've seen the John Wick movies, they're the same way. They just let the action play out. They don't cut. They let it breathe, and it's so incredible. That's why those movies are so like highly regarded. It's the same way. They just let the action happen.
Man, I have not seen a John Wick movie yet.
Dude, they're surprisingly good. They're surprisingly good.
I hear that. Like my kids tell me that, and I'm just so like, good. Okay, well.
There's actually a deep amount of lore involved in that universe they created. It's not just kind of like it's not just some like just nonsense action film.
Yeah.
Like I guess the point A to point B plot is because like the first film is literally just John Wick coming out of retirement because someone like killed his dog. Like that's basically the whole premise. But then when you get to like 2 and 3, there's like way more, like the universe is like established more, and you're like, wow, this is thought out pretty well. This is pretty cool. Like I want to see more of this. And the fight scenes just elevate it to a whole nother level because some of them are incredibly impressive, and the fact that Keanu tries to do a lot of his own stunts and actually trains to do a lot of this stuff, it makes it even more badass. Same with the Matrix, like he did a lot of the same stuff, like learning how to fight, and I love the Matrix trilogy. I can wax poetically about it forever. It's so good. And it always drives me crazy that people shit on it all the time because they're like, oh, it's too overwrought. There's too much. There's too many ideas. And I'm just like, well, it's rooted in philosophy. Like it's kind of supposed to be like that. Like the entire first film is basically just like a narrative version of like Plato's cave and the idea of like a simulated reality. Like that's a 1,000-year-old premise, so and I feel like a lot of people complain about the second and third films because the writing is kind of most of the characters that have dialogue that's kind of complex, those characters are machines, so it makes sense that they kind of speak in a more convoluted like vernacular or more kind of calculated, like computational, because all the human characters have just like normal, regular, phraseology and dialects and stuff. But then you start talking to these like programs and machines, and it's very cold and calculated and kind of like not stale, because that kind of makes it seem like it's bad, but it makes sense that these characters speak that way, because they're programs, they're machines.
I think that's really awesome though that they like. There's that difference that you can tell, and that's really smart that they put that in the movie. So
that's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying like I feel like this film was just it came out too early maybe. And I'm curious. Like even in Hollywood today, we still have a problem with like inclusion and diversity on films, where like some studios will overcompensate and they'll just like cast like a whole film to be like one type of ethnicity. And if you watch The Matrix, like there's literally representation from like everything, and they're not just like extras in the background. Like they all have like roles to play.
Mm-hmm. And it's like they're normal people. It's not like they're just a stereotype or they're the character that's like gonna be the one that dies or something. It's just like normal and cool.
And a lot of them were actual like I can't remember the commander of like the Zion army who's like walking around in one of those like APU like mechs. He's like an Asian dude, and that dude's a badass. Like oh my god, he's like one of my favorite characters in the third film. He's so cool. Yeah, I love The Matrix. It's incredible. I don't have any complaints.
Amazing trilogy.
I'm super curious about the fourth one that's coming out at the end of the year.
I was about to ask, when is that coming out? And there we go.
Comes out in December. And
Yeah.
it has some of the returning cast, like Keanu Reeves is coming back, Carrie Ann
Oh.
Moss is coming back. A couple other like throwaway characters. Lawrence Fishburne's not coming back for Morpheus, and neither is Hugo Weaving for Agent
Yeah.
Smith. So,
No.
but they're keeping this film like tightly under wraps, which is kind of is surprising to me because usually stuff like this leaks, but this film is like very like secret right now. Like no one really knows anything about it besides I think the name leaked. It's like Matrix Resurrections, I think is what it's called. But for the most
Interesting.
part, like everything else is pretty tightly under wraps, which is surprising for Warner Brothers because they pretty much fuck everything up. So
Now, like, is this just take place a long time after 3, or do we know if there's any like connecting material?
it's supposed to take place after 3, but that's also rumored. I think Keanu Reeves came out and said that it's supposed to take place after 3.
Okay.
Like it's not a prequel or anything.
They haven't done any like graphic novels or anything. Like
That's another cool
that's
thing about the
post 3
Matrix. Is
already?
it's not an adaptation.
Sweet.
You know, like the Matrix
Yeah.
trilogy is an original.
Oh yeah,
concept,
the original trilogy. Yeah.
Like that's another thing I love about it is it's like that's their idea, that's their story. It's not like a book series or graphic novels or you know. Honestly, I was
I
thinking
feel like
about this.
that's what you. Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh. I was gonna say, and that's what I feel like you see with a lot of some of these other trilogies is that they're already like pre-established works.
Yeah,
And so it's
exactly.
incredible to have like a solid trilogy
Yeah,
that's original.
it's very like complex and deep. You know, like they did an amazing job. Like I thoroughly enjoy The Matrix to this day. Like I literally just finished watching Revolutions like 2 nights ago, and it just like blows me away how awesome those movies are.
I agree.
I guess it's my turn. Mine's like the most basic of all answers. It's like regarded as like just like one of the best film series of all time, and that's Lord of the Rings.
Fair.
That's always going to be my top trilogy. It's probably never going to be dethroned. I've probably watched these films more than any other films combined. Like I love Lord of the Rings so much. I can't honestly think anything negative about them. Like even if I was nitpicking, I just can't. I love it so much. I've been listening to. I have like a Spotify playlist of all the films, of just like all their scores, and I just like listen to it all the time. Like still.
No, it's so amazing.
It's
Did
incredible.
you know that there was a symphony written for the Lord of the Rings before it was a movie?
I did not.
Like
For the animated ones?
No, not for anything like
Because I even like
like
watching movies.
like a proper like classical symphony. You know, like a piece of work.
I mean, it makes sense. Like the Lord of the Rings story is like, you know, was written like around like early 20th century. You know, like World War One era. So
Yeah.
makes sense that some sort of media would come out of it. You know.
Right.
But yeah, God, I love Lord of the Rings so much. I even like the Hobbit trilogy, but it's definitely not as good. But I don't shit on it like a lot of people do. Like it's still
Yeah,
enjoyable.
I feel the same.
Like I still like it, but it's especially after watching like one of my favorite things about the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy is they do such a thorough job of capturing like a behind the scenes like kind of documentary for how they're all made. Like they always release like the appendixes, and like for each trilogy you probably got like 20 hours of like behind the scenes stuff to watch as well. And I've watched that stuff I've watched them several times just because I just love seeing how these films are made. You know, shot on the original Lord of the Rings is all shot at once, all shot on location, using miniatures, using real like effects and costumes and makeup and props, and it's part of the reason why the film still looks amazing to this day, because it's all, you know, for the most part, a lot of real stuff going on.
Yeah.
And God, it's just so good. Like even like the ride of the Rohirrim and Return of the King, like they were just like driving around New Zealand, like asking anybody that had a horse to like come get costume and just like ride down this hill. They had like 500 like actual like horsemen. and then the rest
That's
was all like
incredible.
computerized, but they just like did this charge of like just like natives, native New Zealanders just ride their horses. Like that stuff's awesome to me. But I think the reason why, getting back to the Hobbit, is why I almost kind of pity it, because Peter Jackson had to kind of come in and save it, and then he also was rushed to finish it. He had like half as much time to work on it as he did the original trilogy. Because he originally wasn't even supposed to do The Hobbit. It was supposed to be Guillermo del Toro, who then backed out.
I did not know that.
Yeah, del Toro wrote a lot of the original, like the first Hobbit film, the first part, and did a lot of the like design work and this, that, and the other. A lot of the pre-production was del Toro, and then he backed out for some reason. I can't think it was like scheduling or something. It was like taking too long. So Peter Jackson had to come in and just kind of pick up the reins and start filming. And then Peter Jackson had like he was hospitalized for a while. And then they were like, oh, wow, we're going to have to get someone else to finish this. And then he came back and continued to film all three of them. And then Warner Brothers was like, hey, yeah, you need to get this done in like 6 months instead of 2 years or whatever. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, so much of that, how impressive that trilogy is, knowing that how it was made, is why I kind of elevate it a little bit more. Just kind of knowing like all the struggles that they were having to go through.
Oh, for sure.
When they were filming that third part, they didn't even have like pre-production notes or storyboards or even like a lot of conceptual ideas. Like Peter Jackson was kind of just pulling shit out of his head to film, to try and like fill in parts. I'm just like, dude, this is a mess. Like, like I could not imagine like anyone handling this and making it even somewhat cohesive, So yeah, another Warner Brothers fuck up.
But not the Lord of the Rings, though.
But not the Lord of the Rings. Oh my god, dude, Lord of the
Never
Rings.
the Lord of the Rings.
It's just so good.
Well,
it's
are
like
you
one of the
excited
few...
for the new one? The new show?
No.
You're not at all? Oh, it's too bad.
If it was HBO doing it, I would. But I have zero trust in Amazon to produce anything of quality.
It's fair.
Because I haven't seen a single thing that they've made that's been worthy of my time.
I don't think they've even shown anything from this yet, have they?
No.
We don't know castings. We don't know...
Well, we know casting.
Oh, do we? Oh.
Yeah. It's a bunch of nobodies.
Oh.
They announced it like a year ago, and it was like 20 people. I'm like, I don't know who the fuck any of you are. So, which, that's not the worst thing. It's whatever. A lot of the people in the Lord of the Rings were nobodies when they were cast, and it was brilliant. So, I don't care about that, but it's supposed to take place during the Second Age. A lot of it's kept under wraps. It's supposed to be incredibly expensive. Like they're spending more on the first season than the entire budget for the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Well, Mr. Bezos, I'm sure he can cop it. So
to be fair, there's also like that's not taken in consideration like inflation or whatever, but still like they definitely feel pretty proud about it, but I have zero excitement because I just think they're just gonna fucking ruin it. Like they also they're not really pulling from any sort of like source material besides just like kind of like stories from like the Unfinished Tales and the Silmarillion, and kind of just taking like, because there's not really like a narrative like there was for Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or anything like that. They're kind of just making up shit as they go.
I mean, a bunch of The Hobbit did that too.
Well,
borrowed
The
from
Hobbit,
the Silmarillion mostly.
Yeah, The Hobbit was, because if you read the Hobbit book, it's very much Bilbo's story.
Like
But
that's
if you
it,
read,
yeah.
But if you read the Unfinished Tales, it fills in all the gaps for what Gandalf was doing every time he disappeared, which was pretty often.
For real.
So Peter Jackson kind of took that and put it into the movie. Otherwise, could you imagine watching the Hobbit movie and like a main character is just like, all right, see ya, and then you never have any idea what he's doing, and it just pops up later. You're just like, okay, cool. Where the fuck have you been? Like, it would make zero sense. People would be like, what is happening? you know. So I'm glad that he actually filled in the gaps with actual like story, you know, because none of that shit was made up. It's just pulled from multiple different books.
Yeah.
It wasn't just strictly a Hobbit adaptation.
Yeah. A lot of the Hobbit,
because the Hobbit is like a children's book.
It is. A lot of the Hobbit is just, here's this nice story. It's got your dark moments. It's got your adventure, and it's got your big bang ending. But
which the big bang ending, Bilbo like was like asleep for it, like he like got knocked out or whatever, so he didn't even see it. Because in the book, it's like it was happening, and then he like got knocked out or tripped and got knocked out, and then he woke up and it was all over. Mm-hmm. So it's not even like detailed how the battle actually plays out. So that would have been like the most pull the rug out from the audience ever. Mm-hmm. If there's like this build up to this big finale, and then it's just like a black screen and comes back up, and it's just like smoke. You're like, battle's over.
Like, we couldn't pay for this, sorry.
So yeah, that's where like turning books into films. That's where you have to take some creative differences, because it's doing direct adaptations it's not always conducive for a visual.
Well, this is not a comparison, but what you just said reminds me of like how they did the very end of the Twilight movie series.
Yeah, they changed all that as well.
Like you actually you see this huge battle take place, and when I watched the movie, I was like, "Whoa, oh my god, what are they doing? This didn't happen." And I was freaking out because I was so happy that this was happening, because it didn't happen in the book. But the ending of the Twilight series pisses me off anyway, because it's so unrealistic. We bring a whole army.
What, vampires are realistic?
Shut up. We bring a whole army to annihilate like 10 people, but we'll just talk about our feelings and everybody will go home happy. And then you and Bella, you can have everything that you have ever wanted for the rest of time without trying, without conflict, without sacrifice. Goodbye. So the fact that I got to see this battle where everybody was getting ripped apart, I was like, oh, I needed this. I was like shouting in that theater. I was like, they did it. And then it's like, well, this is what could happen. And I was like, you cowards. But I still got to see it, so it was fine.
Yeah.
I have never seen that film.
I've
seen
never
the
actually.
First two.
I've seen bits and pieces of the first one. I remember building those movies as a projectionist.
Oh my god.
And I remember tearing them down. Even more so.
Without remorse, and throwing them down the stairs.
Dropping them. Accidentally dropping them. We don't know who's listening.
Throwing.
Don't worry, Summit Entertainment. I took very good care of your
I saw the holes in the wall. He threw them.
Oh,
It's not a true story, by the way. To anybody who's listening.
Yeah, I never read those books and never watched those films. I'm glad I did not jump onto that bandwagon.
I read the half of the first book and literally threw it across the room. So
That's okay. That's fine.
I got to the baseball game. That's the part, if you know. Got to that, threw it across the room. So
yeah, I've seen the baseball scene in the film, and I saw like how that was actually like. I remember Catherine Hardick had like some behind the scenes stuff, how they filmed, how the vampires moved, and they literally just had like rugs that they would like pull them at different frame rates to make them look like they were moving faster. I was like, what is your budget for this film? Like $500? Like, Jesus Christ, it looks terrible.
probably.
I hate the way that they did like the vampire running stuff.
Yeah, it looks
in
so
the
bad.
movies. It's like
I felt like I was watching like a college film.
Kind of.
Like that whole first movie, I was like, wow, this is horrendous. And then they got a new director and actually put a budget behind it. So
well, they did that. Yeah, they got that for the second movie, which didn't need a budget because nothing happens. It's Bella being depressed for 300 pages, and then there's a whole bunch of plot in the last 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third book happens, and the third book is way better. But, you know, hey, here we are.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get back to good stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
Wade, what's
is
your
it,
next?
Is it my
So
turn?
yes, Wade.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a
Yes.
ridiculous one, and you
Okay.
can judge as long as you laugh and have a good time about it. But it is one of my favorite trilogies, and I will fight anybody. You ready?
Okay.
Austin Powers. If that doesn't say something about me, then I don't know what you're here for.
I think that says everything that we ever needed to know.
These were like the movies of my formative years. These movies are the reason I am what I am today.
Yeah, so we have those to thank.
Yes, absolutely. You're welcome, world.
Honestly, I have never seen those films since they have like been released. But I do remember being excited when they were coming out and like going to watch them in a theater with friends and laughing at like how stupid they were. Because it is essentially just like parody of James Bond.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing serious about that movie. It's about any of them. It's just all stupid.
Yeah.
But
It's stupid, but it was funny. Like, I don't know how well it ages now, if it's still funny, but I do remember enjoying those films when they came out. But they are very dumb. There's nothing.
That's why I've never seen them at all.
no.
There's nothing. There's nothing artistic.
That's what I'll say to that.
There's nothing artistic about it or elevates it on a cinematic level or anything like that. It's just they're just dumb fun nonsense. And sometimes you need that, Sometimes you need some dumb fun nonsense.
You go watch number 3. You go watch Goldfinger and tell me
Goldmember.
that you don't last. Oh, that's the other one. Sorry, that's the real one.
Goldfinger's the real Bond movie.
That's the real one. And
You
tell
go
me
watch
that you
Goldfinger
don't-
and tell
you
me
don't
it's not
laugh at
supposed to be
Goldfinger
Okay.
at all.
You might laugh at Goldfinger too. Those films don't age well. A lot of
I'll
those.
pass, but I will. That's your opinion, and I'm okay with that.
You are. You're missing out. I'm telling you.
All right, Chelsea, you have another one?
I mean, I have another one that I enjoy. I wouldn't say it's the best ever, but I do like the Ocean's movies. And as in like the 11,
11,
12,
12,
and 13. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ocean's 8 doesn't count
Yeah.
because that's like they just stole
It's a
that
different
name.
group, kind of, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
I enjoy that movie, but I felt that hate.
yeah. It doesn't need to exist, nor should it ever be watched by anyone ever.
Oh.
But I do like Ocean's. I love Ocean's 11. That movie's so good.
They're fun.
I don't really remember Ocean's 12 too much. Or really, I guess Ocean's 13. I just remember watching Ocean's 11 a lot more. And then I've seen 12 and 13, but I don't think I've seen them more than once. Like that kind of thing. But yeah, those are... It's mostly just because Brad Pitt and George Clooney are like the definition of like charisma. So it just kind of... Even if the whole movie's terrible, they'll pull you through it.
Right.
So...
Yeah.
But yeah.
Man,
So, yeah, they're just
neither of them are
enjoyable.
really doing
That's
much
fine.
anymore, are they?
I mean, do they really have to?
I mean, they're probably set for life, but I mean, like, what was the last Brad Pitt movie?
He did that Tarantino one, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Didn't he win the Oscar
Yeah.
for it?
I don't know. I didn't watch.
I think
didn't watch
Chelsea,
So-
you watch the Oscars every year.
I know. Doesn't mean I remember him. Oh,
I'm pretty
man.
sure he won Best Supporting
I think he
Actor
did.
for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Which that's
He was definitely nominated
That's
for
a
it.
fantastic film. But I can't think of the last thing
That's good.
George Clooney did. He usually would do a lot of Wes Anderson stuff, or like the Coen brothers, but he hasn't really. I can't think of the last thing George Clooney did. He got married and kind of just stopped doing stuff.
Oh, did he finally get married?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
5 years ago, right?
Wow.
4 or 5
It was
years
a
ago.
while.
Look at him go.
Yeah.
To somebody really young, I thought.
It was some like Italian woman, I think.
That doesn't shock me.
But yeah, I can't think of the last thing George Clooney did.
His last movie he did was The Midnight Sky, which I think was
Oh, that was a
on-
Netflix film.
Yes, a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
That was also like nominated for something.
Probably because he was in it.
Oh, it was nominated for visual effects. There were very few movies that came out last year that were able to be nominated for that category.
Like, all right, we got to find something.
Interesting. All right. Well, Ethan, back to you,
Okay.
I guess.
Well, Lord of the Rings was my big one. Matrix was one of mine as well. And then my other one that's one of my top trilogies is the Dark Knight trilogy.
Dark Knight.
I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I love Christopher Nolan as a director. The only thing that holds that trilogy back for me is the first one with Katie Holmes. I think Katie Holmes is awful. She's annoying to look at and to listen to.
I've never heard annoying to look at. You visually annoy me. Please remove yourself from the scene.
Go watch that movie, and I swear to God, her eyes are looking in two different directions the whole time. And it drives me crazy. Nothing, I mean, I'm sure she's a nice lady, but goddamn, she
put up with Tom Cruise for so long. Right?
Right. But she just brings that film down so much because every scene she's in, I'm just like, oh, it's like cringe. It's so bad. But Dark Knight is like a masterpiece film. Like that film is like taught in like film school now. And I actually really like Dark Knight Rises. I know a lot of people didn't, but I absolutely love Dark Knight Rises.
I loved it too. Yeah, I didn't really get the whole business behind that when it was a thing.
Yeah,
I think they were just comparing it too much to the Dark Knight, and that's just silly. So
yeah, but yeah, I think that trilogy is great. I love all the casting from it, besides Katie Holmes. I love the music. The music is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, Christopher Nolan is a director doing a lot of almost everything he does is like practical effects, which is impressive. Yeah, I just love the Dark Knight trilogy. Plus, I'm a huge Batman fan, so
of course. I need to go back watch Rises again.
I'm already like have predisposition to love it because Batman's in it. So I was thinking about another trilogy, but I don't really consider it a trilogy, even though it's probably not gonna continue on past 3. But I really like the Zack Snyder DC trilogy with Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Justice League. But even though like the story doesn't technically wrap up,
I mean, in a way, it does.
In a way, but there's definitely more. Like there's supposed to be more.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could definitely continue the story from that point on, but it ends a lot of the story that came before it.
Right, but like, I guess I can't really consider it a trilogy, even though I doubt there's ever more to come from it, even though I keep hoping. But yeah, I really love those films. I'm also a huge Zack Snyder fan, so internet, whatever, come at me. I know everyone likes to shit on Zack Snyder, but...
before the Zack Snyder cut came out, I think that would be a fair thing to say, but like he got to release that, and I haven't really like heard much of the Zack Snyder blah blah blah. Since,
because now everyone's like, oh, please, because now it's restore the Snyderverse. We love Zack Snyder. Please give us more Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
But I'm even talking about like before like he even started doing DC movies. People are like, Zack Snyder's a fucking hack. And I'm like, no, he's got. I love directors that I can watch something and know that it's their film. Mm-hmm. Like I consider that being an auteur, because he has a vision and a style that's uniquely his. And I appreciate that as someone who studies film and is like that loves like the creation of it and the artistic nature of it. Like you can pick any studio director off the street that just does whatever the studio wants and it may be a great film, but they don't have like an imprint on it as much as like a Snyder or a Christopher Nolan or a Tarantino, who I consider auteurs, because you can definitely tell one of their films apart from other people, That's part of the reason why I've always adored Zack Snyder, because I just love his style. It's incredibly, just, I don't know. The visuals that he pulls off are impressive to me.
Do you think a lot of that Zack Snyder hate started just basically like with the Watchmen stuff? Because he changed like the ending and stuff, people were like, I can't believe you did that. Zack Snyder sucks, blah, 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 blah.
I don't know. I think a lot of it came from just like contrarian notions, because when he did 300, it was such a big film.
I always forget that he did that. Oh my gosh.
And people were like, oh, it's not that good. So everyone was trying to think of a way to shit on it and to shit on him. because it was hyper stylized, but it's like, hey, it's based on a graphic novel, you fuck faces. Like, it's supposed to be hyper stylized, just like Watchmen's supposed to be hyper stylized, because that graphic novel is extremely, like, he basically just, besides the ending, he almost just used the graphic novel as like his storyboards.
Yeah, well, and I think that's why people didn't. I think it was just the ending of Watchmen that everything was great until the ending, and just that people were like blah blah blah. But like us, when we're too young to like freaking care when that movie came out, like I hadn't read Watchmen yet.
Well, hot take: I read Watchmen before I watched the film, and I actually think Zack Snyder's ending was better.
You think so?
Than the graphic novel, because I like the idea that Dr. Manhattan was the reason for all the cities being destroyed instead of just alien squids falling from the sky.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because it made more sense for why Dr. Manhattan had to go into exile.
Well, don't they stop Ozymandias too in the movie?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of.
And then, but in the graphic novel, they don't. Like, he does.
Well, they don't. He still destroys all the cities in Watchmen the movie. They don't actually stop him. They try to, but he still succeeds. And then it's still the same way, like how the graphic novel ends, where Rorschach's diary gets dropped off at like that news, like that tabloid place or whatever, which has like the truth in it to kind of defeat Ozymandias's utopia, because the whole idea fringes on like the lie they have to tell themselves, basically.
Right.
Like, Zack Snyder's ending made more sense to me than the actual
just random
Watchmen graphic
aliens.
novel, because it's like, hey, I'm gonna use teleportation to spawn in these squids, and it's gonna frighten the world to think that aliens are real, so we have to band together. But
Other
Zack
than
Snyder's
trick the literal god into,
in Zack Snyder's
everything.
version, it makes the world afraid of Dr. Manhattan, and they all have to band together to fight this like deity, basically.
Right. No, I like it. I love watching
like
The
it.
Watchmen just because it just looks so good.
It does. And
I like that movie too.
It's a damn good movie.
Or
But yeah, I even like Dawn of the Dead, like his first film. Like,
Dawn of the Dead.
I'm not really a big zombie person, but I do like Dawn of the Dead.
Oh,
and I
isn't
still
that
need
a trilogy?
Well, I mean, you're thinking of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead and Land of the Dead and Island of the Dead.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Like, there are a lot of those types of films, but I still need to see Army of the Dead, which is Snyder's newest film that he did. Which I read like one of like an excerpt from like an interview he did about it, where he kind of just like treated the making of that film as like therapy for the loss of his daughter and all the bullshit he had to go through with Warner Brothers. Where he's like, I'm just gonna just go nuts. Netflix is giving me just like a blank check to do whatever I want without any like interference. And he was talking about how like it was like one of the like best films he's ever like got to shoot, like not like quality, but just like having fun doing it.
Right.
So I'm just like, man, that dude's been through some shit, you know.
He really has. That poor
Like
guy.
if you listen to him like talk about what it was like working with Warner Brothers, it was like, God, it's awful. Like, it sounds awful. Like, I'm surprised that dude hasn't killed himself. Like, all the nonsense he had to deal with Warner Brothers. And it drives me crazy that he can't continue on with his, like, DC vision. Because, like, if you've watched those films, you can tell that this dude loves DC. You know, that he actually loves these characters. Like, he puts, like, actual, like, his, like, passion and heart and soul into trying to create this, like, mythology with these characters. So
maybe someday.
Please restore the Snyderverse is what I'm saying, because I need more of it, because it's fucking amazing. I don't really give a shit about all these upcoming DC films where they're trying to just emulate Marvel. Like, I don't want that. Like, I like that the Snyderverse was completely different and its own thing, you know? Like, when he was making Batman vs. Superman, he was talking about, like, how he wanted to do something different because Marvel was already successful at the, like, action comedy aspect of these movies. So why try and compete with it? Like, let's kind of, like, pave our own lane. And Warner Brothers was, like, totally against it.
Yep.
It's also bullshit to me that I don't want to go too much into this because I can spend hours.
Sure can.
I remember when Batman vs. Superman, they did the internal screening for all the Warner Brothers executives. And when that film ended, they all gave him like a standing ovation. They said it was like the best thing they've ever seen, you know, da 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 da. Well, then the film came out, and it started getting bad reviews. And then all the executives are like, yeah, it wasn't what we expected. It was, you know, this, like, they completely, just, like, turned tail on him. Like, they didn't defend him at all. I was like, you guys are fucking cowards. So, yeah, fuck Warner Brothers. They need to clean house over there. They need to clean house over there, because that studio is a shit show right now.
Mm-hmm, it's true.
So.
It's true.
Does anybody have any like underrated trilogies? I guess Austin Powers is kind of one of those.
Don't you dare. Oh, let's see.
Or anything that's like it's not quite at that level of greatness, but it's so close.
So something I really liked, the Paranormal Activity trilogy.
Yeah, but isn't there like 9 of those films now?
Well,
Yeah, I was like, aren't there more than 3?
There's 1, 2, 3, and they tell a cohesive like storyline.
Yeah.
But then it spawned all the mutant offspring. That's when it got less scary, because they started basing it off myths, and like they went like the typical horror route. But 1, 2, and 3 were very much their own thing that had an actual story.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And those
are
like,
the only. I've only seen 1, 2, and 3.
That's all you need to see.
Where it was literally just like about like the sisters or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah.
But those are like the only scary movies that I've seen like since like childhood age, that actually scared me. But I also really enjoyed them at the same time.
Yeah, dude, I remember watching. So Wade and I worked at the theater, and I got a private screening for the first Paranormal Activity, and that film scared the shit out of me watching it in theaters by myself. Mm-hmm. It was horrifying.
I couldn't imagine. I went to the theater in Cape to watch that one.
Yeah.
But that was before I worked there. But I did go there to watch it, and I just like could not get up out of my seat afterwards. I was like, nope, just leave me.
I watched the second one first, actually. So I was in college when and my roommate was like, hey, you want to go see the midnight premiere of this movie or whatever? And I was like, sure, whatever.
Speaking of another horror series that kind of killed itself by kind of continuing on too much, the original 3 Saw movies I actually really like. I know, I guarantee none of you guys have seen Saw.
No, I have, but those... I was never, like, scared or on edge or even tense at those movies. When it comes to just, like, the goriness, you know...
I just
like, look at these people that have to hurt themselves. You know, I'm just like, but they're all kind of dumb bitches at the end of the day. So, like...
My thing I liked about the Saw movies was the last 10 minutes of all of them, or the first 3, because it was literally just like, here's all the twists and turns and everything you thought was happening, but it's actually this and this. Like, I thought it was like a really well weaved, like twisty turny film. Like all the like torture gore nonsense was just like window dressing, but like the actual like underlying narrative and like the villain of the film, like I actually really liked all of his cons, I guess. Like
I liked that.
Like, the conception of it was like, I was like, holy shit.
Like show me the beginning, show me the end, and I'm fine.
Yeah, when I watched that first Saw and that movie ended with like what you thought was just a dead body in the bathroom, and he like stands up and it's like the main dude the whole time, and he just like traps him in that bathroom. Like I remember watching that and I was like, what the fuck? Like I was like blown away by that moment. It was amazing. But then they made like 9 of those films and they're just awful. Like I don't understand. I think it's because horror films are so cheap to make that these studios are just like, hey, let's make 15 of these, you know? They make a lot of money and they cost nothing to make. So let's just, you know, they just completely ruin these franchises by having like I can't even think of like a horror franchise that has less than 5 movies in it. You know?
Right?
Yeah.
Man, working at the theater during like horror movie premieres was like the worst, best time. Like me and the other ticket sellers, we would like the opening weekend of these movies, we would make bets and deals and stuff to see how many kids can we catch, like going into these movies, or trying to scam us into thinking they're buying a ticket for this movie.
Yeah, like, oh, we're here to see Happy Feet. I'm like, yeah.
Liars.
No, you're not.
Liars. It's like, oh, well, the boyfriend's 18 or 17 or whatever, and the girlfriend's 16 or 15. It's like, well, he's going to buy a ticket for the horror movie, but I'm going to buy a ticket for the SpongeBob movie. Like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Let me just pick up this radio. No. I'm not telling them to watch you once you get into the...
Dude, we could do like a
forum.
whole episode just on like working at the movie theater.
God, maybe we should.
Yes, please.
Maybe get some wine, everybody just have a nice drink, and let's just get bitchy. Let's just do it.
There's some stuff
I'll
may
lead
not...
the Q&A on that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's some stuff that I probably won't talk about.
Probably should. We're legally obligated to not.
Yeah, exactly.
discuss
There's probably some
that.
stuff I shouldn't divulge for my best interest. But man, working at the theater, those are good times. Good times.
Well, another trilogy that I'll just mention. I mean, Jurassic Park. I mean, I think the first one is really great, so I like that one a lot. But I will say the Jurassic World movies I don't count as being part of that trilogy. They're all whole separate thing that we don't
they're
need to
their own
talk
separate
about.
trilogy going on, so that's fine.
That's weird. Yeah.
I will say, in terms of Jurassic World, I am very much an outlier on this, but I very much liked the second one. Was it Forbidden Kingdom? Is that what it's called? Or is that something?
No, I think that's it. I don't really remember it. I remember like some scenes, but I couldn't tell
I remember
you what
the ending
plot
of that
is.
movie.
Well, yeah, the ending, which I'm like, how are you going to make this make any sense later? Like, what are you doing?
The only thing I really liked about that movie that I thought was at least different for that series is they made it into like, it was almost like a horror film. Like the way it was shot, the last half of that film was almost like a gothic horror film. They're all stuck in a mansion. There's like a killer dinosaur on the loose. Some of the
It's
filming
like Clue,
techniques,
but with a dinosaur.
yeah, some of the filming techniques and some of the lighting and some of the like the tension ramp ups were actually handled really well from that director. The story is incomprehensible and it's complete total nonsense, but it's a fucking movie about dinosaurs, so
Like, you're 5. Just watch the movie.
yeah, I'm not taking away too many points for that, but I just like that they finally, because Jurassic World is essentially just Jurassic Park done again. It's not bold, it's not inventive or daring at all. So when they did that second one and they went into like this completely different direction on how it's filmed and how to just like present this story, like I thought that was really cool. I at least give it brownie points for being different. You know.
There you go. Yeah. So it's like I'm not giving that story any credit at all, but
No, the story.
yeah.
I mean, the story's nonsense.
Yeah, fun movies to watch though. Lots of cool stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it because it was fun because it was like, I didn't have all these like when I was watching Jurassic World, I was literally just watching like it was like watching a fan film of Jurassic Park, you know, like it kind of just had the same like the same story beats. I'm just like, oh my god, this is literally the same fucking movie, and it's just worse.
Star Wars Episode 7, anybody?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same reason why I don't like that film because it's just not. It's
too safe.
It plays it safe. It's just pandering to fans basically, and I don't like that. I want
I like
something
that
bold
one,
and
so
inventive.
come
and
at me.
It's very chill. Again, it's just a fun movie to watch. Like, it's fine.
No, we can have a whole thing about Star Wars later.
I was still talking about the first Jurassic World movie, but
They're
It's
both
fine.
terrible.
But I think but Jurassic Park, the first one is incredible. Now we
Oh,
could
yeah.
say,
Yeah,
the second and
100%.
third ones are kind of but I don't know. I just think that.
I don't mind Lost World.
Yeah.
I think Lost World's fine. I think Jeff Goldblum just kind of helps elevate that film, just because he's just a weird character.
Yes.
But
definitely.
I mean, Jurassic Park that is literally just like a film classic. Like it holds up still today.
masterpiece.
A lot of animatronics and practicals and stuff help it age well. But yeah, I mean that film is literally a
incredible.
classic. So
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I think I've only seen Jurassic Park 3 once, and that was enough. So that was actually the guy that directed that did the first Captain America, the first Avenger.
Really?
It's the same director.
Oh, that's cool.
Joe Johnson. Yeah, Joe Johnson is literally a discount Steven Spielberg. He tries so hard to be Steven Spielberg.
Aw. Poor guy.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ethan, how about you? You got one more?
Not necessarily a favorite film trilogy. Like I was thinking about this, and kind of on the same course of like a really good trilogy, and then it was ruined by keep making more sequels and stuff. Was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, it was on my list. That was what I was going to talk about
Like
next. Nice.
I really like the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean films. They're not perfect, and the story gets kind of nonsensical towards the end.
For sure.
But they're just like, they're super fun movies. The score is impressive. I really like pretty much all the characters.
Oh yeah.
You know. And then they just kept making more.
Yeah, I see like 4 and on. I kind of see them as their own like not like a separate trilogy. Just like each
like
movie
spin-offs.
after that is just its own movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
like
I don't
that
think
first...
I've seen 5 yet. I don't think I've even watched 5.
Oh my god, it's so god
I haven't
awful.
either.
I've seen
awful.
4, but I don't really remember 5, so I guess I haven't seen it.
5 is so bad. You could tell Johnny Depp stopped caring.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I think he's actually drunk in this film.
Nice. Good for him.
Like it's not a good movie. It's just bad. It's just a bad movie. But yeah, I really love the first 3. Like I remember, like I actually think Dead Man's Chest is the best out of the 3. A lot of people like the first one best, but I love Davy Jones so much.
No,
He's
adding him into that like was
dude,
it made such a difference.
Yeah.
It gave the movies like a sense of like purpose and direction. While the first one was just a nice complete film.
Yeah.
Adding Davy Jones into the second one really gave it that big push where you just knew there's going to be more after this.
Well, it raised the stakes. It expanded the lore and expanded like the world. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of like it created a bigger foil for like everyone, and not just a personal thing for Johnny Depp, you know, like,
right,
or Captain Jack or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, and just like the effects for Davy Jones, oh my god, like they still look amazing. Like that character looks impressive.
And listening to Bill Nye play,
yeah, dude,
it's
perfect
just like
casting.
You just know.
Yeah, all the casting in that series is pretty well on point. Like
right?
they pretty much nailed it. Mm-hmm. Like I love it. They did such a good job, and the music is impressive. That's another like series where I have like those soundtracks on a playlist, and I'll listen to them. Yeah, I really love that trilogy. It just sucks that they kept making them.
Gotta milk it, you know.
Yeah,
You got rides to get people on.
right.
Jungle Cruise.
Oh, dude, that movie looks awful.
I
finally saw
think it looks fun.
It looks kind of
saw
like a less funny Jumanji, kind of like less cast, you know, so less chances to be funny.
I think it's funny. It's like Emily Blunt came out. She's like, I don't want to do a Marvel film because they're not inventive or whatever, and you're in fucking Jungle Cruise. Like, get over yourself.
Somebody needs to go and like get her because she's supposed to be Susan Storm. We can't allow
exactly.
We
exactly.
can't. She's gonna have to like get over that because that's who she's gonna have to be.
It was like some interview for like A Quiet Place 2 or whatever, and like the interviewer asked, they're like, hey, what do you think about all this casting rumors that you're in Fantastic Four? And she's like, I wish people would stop talking about it because I don't want to do a superhero movie because they're boring to me. And then, you know, skip forward 3 months and you're in fucking Jungle Cruise.
Wasn't
like
Emily Blunt supposed to be Scarlet Witch? Scarlet Witch. Oh my god, Emily Blunt was supposed to be Black Widow, wasn't she? At first.
Yeah, I think she auditioned for it.
That sounds.
It's just like how Tom Cruise was supposed to be Tony Stark or whatever.
And the world is thankful that didn't work out.
Yeah.
That's 23 movies and counting that we would not have. So, praise be.
Yeah, I think someone actually made like an Avengers film poster with all the should have been actors and actresses for all the different roles.
Jesus.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't think of any other like just straight up trilogies. Like honestly, I don't like Back to the Future at all. I don't like any of those movies. I think they're
I
highly
kinda like
overrated.
They're just there for me. Like, oh, they're
Yeah,
movies.
like they exist and they're fine. They're just like campy fun or whatever. But God, everyone like puts those movies on a pedestal, same as like Ghostbusters, and I find both those film series to be awful. So
Back to the Future holds a little bit of like a little special place in my heart, just because like it's something like I watched with my family. Like,
Yeah.
growing up, they were just like my parents were excited to like show those movies to us.
yeah, I
but-
can understand like
yeah.
people having like some sort of like nostalgic take, but like saying they're actually like good movies is a stretch because they're not. So, they're very boring. Like I just find them all boring. They just bore me.
Well, here's one for you that we haven't talked about, and I'm a little surprised. How about Toy Story?
I don't consider that a trilogy. Not because of Toy Story 4.
They ruined it with 4.
Like I don't even.
Don't get me started again.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
Right. I don't even consider 4 to exist, but I still don't consider that a
It should
trilogy because it's not really like. I don't see it as like a designed through story. Like a, you know what I mean?
I got you.
Like I just see him as like, wow, Toy Story is really successful. We should probably do another one.
Okay.
Hey, that worked out really well. We should probably do another one. Like I don't see it as something that was like planned.
Oh yeah, because
Each story has its own like conclusion and wrap up.
right, like Pixar
It's not
just
like
they
a-
write movies when they want to,
Yeah, exactly.
not because somebody's making them profit.
That's why I've
from
never. Yeah, that's why I never thought of it as a trilogy because it wasn't like designed to be.
them. Okay, fair enough.
If that makes
fair
sense.
enough.
Like
I
not
could
like
say Cars is a trilogy.
Well, we don't talk about cars in this podcast. so-
No.
Cars. Is that
What?
What's Cars? Is Cars a thing?
You
really
remember how
not bad.
quick we
We
cut
just-
all of them from our Mount Rushmore?
Yeah. Hey, but that was because we were looking for like the
Good
the
movies.
best of the best in Pixar.
And-
they are pretty
and we knew
decent. It
what-
does actually wrap up the story.
I've only seen
it
Cars
is
once,
a
so I'll have to.
trilogy. Yes, I
Yeah,
get
It
it.
is.
I'll have to take your word on it, but I've only seen the first one,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was enough. That was enough for me.
There's character development in them, major character development in the third one, and basically passing of the torch. So,
There you go. That's all
There
you
you
need.
go.
That's all trilogies need.
All right, here's another one because I feel like somebody's gonna come for us if we don't at least say the word. How
Mention
about Godfather?
Yeah. See, part 3 is just not good. So
that's the one I haven't seen.
That's
um,
okay. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
The first 2 Godfather films, especially the first one, are very well done. It's not something that I am going to turn on to watch. Like I don't think those films have rewatchability unless you're doing it to study the craft itself of filmmaking, because those films are brilliant in a lot of ways, but they're not really fun to watch. They're very
Yeah, unless you're super into the mafia scene.
Yeah, and even still, like I feel like even the pacing is almost too slow. And I like older films. Like I don't mind a slow burn, but I feel like it takes too long for, especially the first Godfather, to actually for things to start happening. So, and it just, yeah, I see that a lot on like top 10 film trilogies of all time, and I always see Godfather as like number 1, and I think it's just because it is like
Like the
regarded.
notoriety and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same thing where it's like, oh, Shawshank Redemption is like one of the best movies of all time, and it's like, yeah, it's fine, but it's not. It's not one of the best movies of all time.
Right.
And same with
Okay.
like same with like Citizen Kane. Like these films are good as someone as like in terms of like film craft, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the stuff that, especially some of the stuff with like Citizen Kane, like what they were able to achieve for that era, in terms of filmmaking processes, like that's impressive. But they're just, I don't know. I don't consider them like favorites because I'm not just gonna turn on Citizen Kane or The Godfather or whatever on a Saturday afternoon for a happy fun time. Whereas
Right, that's fair.
whereas I would do that with Lord of the Rings. Like I turn on Lord of the Rings all the time. You know, I just have it playing in the background. It's kind of like it's just like a comfort food for me. You know.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any quick ones to throw out? I do. I have a couple, but I'll let you all go first.
I mean, I really like John Wick, but it's also not a trilogy because there's I think there's going to be 5 of them, I think. But the first 3 films are fantastic. If you haven't seen John Wick, you should give them a chance.
I'm gonna set some time aside to rewatch The Matrix, and then get into John Wick.
Yeah, definitely rewatch The Matrix.
And probably even The Watchmen, because it's been a long time.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you're going to watch Watchmen, this is another kind of like Zack Snyder trait, is almost all of his movies you need to watch his actual director's cut version of, because they are infinitely better than the theatrical release.
I think that's the one that I have.
Yeah.
I have a nice Steelbook edition. I think that's what I have. So
In fact, Watchmen, he has the ultimate cut, which actually has the Tale of the Black Freighter, like an animated. Because if you've read Watchmen the graphic novel, throughout the book, it cuts to like Tales from the Black Freighter as like a kind of like side story. And if you watch the ultimate cut of Watchmen the film, he inserts passages of like they made like an animated version of Tales from the Black Freighter.
That's neat.
So it's really cool.
Okay.
It's for more like purists, I guess. But it is cool. And I think Gerard Butler does the voice of the character for Tales of the.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, same with like Justice League. You got to watch the 4-hour version and not the theatrical cut. You know.
I don't think that movie even exists anymore.
It shouldn't.
I really don't think it does.
It definitely should not. It is horrendous. I know this is favorite film trilogies, but does anybody have like a bad trilogy?
Well, we kind of talked about it. We kind of goofed about it earlier, but there's always Blade.
Yeah, but I actually like the first 2 movies,
and that's fair.
But Blade Trinity is
it's
awful.
like that's like the invisible movie there that we don't talk about, but it turns it into a trilogy. But we just don't. We just
like Blade 2 is actually really cool.
It really
is. That's a Guillermo del Toro film. So.
Dude, I used to like sit in my living room watching the Blade movies, like with a sword, like a fake sword, and like try to be Wesley Snipes. Dude, I love the Blade movies. They were very dark and, of course, like not exactly kid friendly, but hey.
That first one has like some stuff in it that's like pretty just like gross. Like
for real, it does. It's
just like, oh, this is just sick.
No, I gotta add Blade movies to my list now. I'm gonna be busy this week. Oh my gosh,
sounds like a good week. For the most
Well,
part.
the last one that I have on my list that we haven't really talked about is the original X-Men trilogy.
Yeah, the first 2 are really good.
Yeah, so it's another one of those cases where there was the first 2 and then they flew too close to the sun. They went too far, too fast.
And I still will watch
by the Phoenix.
Yeah, I will still watch X-Men Last Stand just because Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen as Xavier and Magneto is still some of like the best casting ever.
Well, I think my favorite casting in that whole trilogy is Jean Grey.
Really, that's like my least favorite.
I think she was always my favorite, like in the movies, just because like like in the first 1 and then half of 2, her powers are just so mysterious. Like she just kind of does things.
Yeah.
And then she starts to lose it in 2, but in 3 she's just like this badass bitch, who's just like killing people and doing what she wants, but she's struggling. But it's just kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jean Grey as like a character, but I feel like they've never got her right in any film ever.
No, not yet. I mean,
yes, exactly.
It was even worse with Sansa Stark playing her.
Yeah, I was excited when they announced Sophie Turner was gonna play her, And then you had the
I was
first
not.
movie she was in, and I was like, okay, well, that's a starting point. Like, the whole young X-Men, it was all a starting point. But then the next movie came out, and I was like,
Dude, those
well, that happened.
those young X-Men movies are just not good.
I liked First Class a
I
lot.
like First Class. Yes,
And
the-
First Class is
The
good.
concept
I liked First Class when it came out, but I recently rewatched it, and that movie's not good on second watching. Like,
You don't think so?
No, I was surprised on just like how bad it looks, and how bad the editing is, and just everything about it. I think I was more excited by the casting at the time, because a lot of the casting I liked, because I like James McAvoy, I like Michael Fassbender, I like Jennifer Lawrence, but like, yeah, I rewatched it maybe a few months ago. It was like on TV or something, and I watched it, and I was like, God, this movie's awful. I just cannot get into this at all.
I hated Emma Frost, or who they casted for Emma Frost. I thought that was the worst
I agree with that.
use of Emma Frost in a movie. That was terrible, but I don't know. I enjoyed that movie. I've seen it many times, but
There's a lot of...
I'm not saying
Go ahead,
the X-Men movies are the best movies ever, but I'm just a big
no.
X-Men fan, so
I think a lot of it also
I'll give it a
too
watch.
is due to recency bias, where we have stuff like the MCU to kind of like hold up as like a standard for superhero films now, and kind of going back and watching some of these earlier attempts at trying to create these broader universes, and you realize how shitty they are. Because like X-Men squandered almost every opportunity they had for themselves.
Well, just blame Bryan Singer for that.
Yeah, I blame Bryan Singer for a lot of things.
That's fair. As we all should. As we all should.
But yeah, like X-Men characters in that universe is so amazing, and it's just like, honestly, like the first two X-Men movies and then the Wolverine and Logan are like the only films that actually are good out of like the other like 8 that there are. So like the other ones are just, and they take like such prominent villains and just fucking ruin them.
They make them like the
Apocalypse.
villain of the day kind of thing.
Yeah. They just rush way too many things.
Well,
So, yeah.
hopefully the MCU is really, really taking their time with the concept of the mutants. Like, I just had a conversation last night, actually, and like, so they put the mutants in, but like, which iteration of the mutants are we getting? Are we getting X-Men versus the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants? Like, does that fit into the world?
Yeah.
Meh.
I don't know.
Also, we've heard that story be told 6 times now.
Yeah.
Are we getting like the current like Krakoan mutants, where there isn't this team versus this team versus this team based off ideologies, but mutantdom is a group of people with their own country, with their own culture, where they are not the villains of each other, but they're there to protect themselves and the rest of the world,
Honestly, judging on just how I feel like the MCU's handled character introductions in general, I feel like it's going to be more of just introducing mutant kind, as opposed to like trying to establish their ideologies and their like battle lines.
I think that's smart.
I think that is too,
yeah,
because
I like
it
that.
is well-worn territory, so it's not anything that's like surprising or fun for the viewer anymore, because it's kind of like a Spider-Man thing. How many times do we have to watch Ben Parker die
Right.
before we get it?
At this point, you should be able to see an X-Men and assume some small parts of their backstory or past and stuff like that. Like, if they start talking about something, you should go, I think I get the gist of like what they're talking
Also,
about. That should be
what I want from the MCU X-Men that we never really got with the Fox X-Men is I want more comic accurate costumes. Like they kind of teased Wolverine's like classic like yellow and black costume at the end in like a deleted scene for the Wolverine. And I was like, oh my god, please just have Hugh Jackman wear this once.
Hugh Jackman is like, you're going to pay me an additional $500,000 for me to hold this in my hands. But I will not. I will never put this on.
I don't think they need to go like just like a perfect replica or whatever, but I feel like the MCU has done a fairly decent job with a lot of like costuming.
They've like
for
normalized a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I hope we get
But I feel like they're getting
to see ridiculous mutant stuff.
I feel like they're also getting more bold with being comic like a little bit more comic accurate.
Mm.
I mean, we saw it with
I can see
WandaVision, giving Scarlet Witch more of like her Scarlet Witch look, and then giving Falcon his like like Captain America Falcon look. Like I feel like they are getting a little bit more like, hey, let's go ahead and just do this. Let's go ahead and push for it. So I kind of hope they do that with the X-Men as well. Like they don't have to make it like a full scale or whatever, but I don't want them running around in black leather. So.
That was the style of the 90s, man. Come on.
That was. That's like the best thing about the Matrix trilogy is like the costuming.
Oh my god, black leather for everybody.
Because it's like, the Matrix, you get to how you perceive yourself, and everyone just perceives themselves as like wearing sunglasses and tight leather.
Yes.
Squeak, 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 squeak.
Which I'm kind of curious for the next Matrix film, like what's going to be like the look for, you know what I mean? Like the new thing.
It's going to be more targeted towards Gen Z.
Yeah, it's going to be very flamboyant, probably. Very like very peacocking on there.
Well, that's what I want out of the mutants too. I want their costumes just to be like get it. Let's go.
Just do it.
And so speaking of, in the comics, there's this thing that's happening currently called the Hellfire Gala, put on by Emma Frost. And it's basically like an opening of Krakoa to the rest of the world, so they can kind of come see like the culture, the new culture and stuff. And this mutant fashion designer has created brand new, they're not outfits like crime fighting outfits, they're just like, they're very fashionable outfits, like based off of like the concepts of each character or their power set and stuff. So like you go to a fashion gala and every single mutant is in this like ridiculous, flamboyant, but it's beautiful.
It's like the,
it is so beautiful.
It's like the Met Gala in real life.
Kind of.
It's just
like
the X-Men's version of the Met Gala.
Yeah, so like you have foreign dignitaries showing up, prime ministers in their black suits and ties. You have some superheroes showing up in suits and ties, but most of them are showing up in their superhero get up because they're friends to some degree with this mutant or this mutant. But then like here comes Emma Frost in this most ridiculous diamondy revealing outfit you've ever seen. It's just like it's just a huge mess, but it's beautiful at the same time. Like the team that did this must have had like one hell of a time getting to just go all out, because it's not like they don't have to be functional, because they're not like new costumes for them to go out and be heroes in.
No, I want them to be the actual hero costume.
Some of them would be quite a show. Wow. Like Storm, like for instance, Storm has this beautiful like dress leotard thing, but like she also has like lightning coursing through her hair at the same time. Like it's so amazing. Like each of the costumes,
that's awesome.
Each of the costumes shows off their powers and their personality, and sometimes their like history of costume choice. Like it's just
literally like the Met Gala met Greek mythology.
It's amazing.
That's literally wear our powers on our sleeves. All right, well, yeah, I can't think of any more film trilogies, good, bad, or otherwise. There's honestly not really that many out there, because they're either ruined by sequels or they never even got trilogy status. So it's kind of like
very true.
It's kind of a small group. So yeah, I guess that's gonna do it for this episode. Guys, you have anything else, or are we good?
We're good.
I think we're good.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. So be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast so you don't miss out on our next episode. And also take some time, write us a review, leave us some stars. Write into the show. You can email us at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at PodDemastered. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.